We have Megalith for you today. S-Force Lightsworn innovations. It's quite the treats. Make sure you guys smash the crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. That is S-Force with a Bysteel package in here. You know, I didn't consider the idea of trying to merge these two ideas necessarily together. Now, to be honest with you, the OCG does have Wyvern Buster and the Collapse Serpent at a little bit higher numbers, and they also do have additional Chaos bases, but I don't think that that necessarily makes a difference in a deck like this. So basically, S-Force aims to basically abuse columns and be able to set up monsters and these punishing effects to be able to use those columns in your advantage. And of course, you know, remember SP Little Knight being, S-Force Rapachuyamaru here. You get some in-house synergy, as we're going to call it here. Now, I think one of the more interesting things about this build is just the defensive approach of power that you're kind of getting. Obviously, shifters, dimensional fissures. This deck has to be able to compete with fire in order to kind of, you know, keep up. And I think with what you have for the S-Force stuff, also keep in mind, S-Force does have Night Chaser, Yield, Link 1. Each of your opponent's monsters in the same column as one of your S-Force monsters. Cannot target that monster in the same column for attacks. And then during your main phase, you target an S-Force monster you control, shuffle it into the deck, and then you can special summon one of your banished S-Force monsters. So basically, whichever one of these banished little pieces that you have, you're good to go. And of course, we play 2 copies of the S-Force Chase here as well. I don't really... There's not too much else to say about the S-Force package. It's definitely interesting that they're incorporating the Dragon Link mini package, or at least trying to use the little stepping stones that like the Bysteals and stuff give you to kind of try to make Justify a little bit easier. I mean, this card is always going to be the heart and soul of the deck. That's all there is to it. So, very interesting stuff. You know, this pile of cards here, you got to remember, Block Dragon still fundamentally exists in the OCG. And because of that, you've got people out here that are always going to try to find a way to at least innovate this deck in some sort of, you know, ability. Now, I do think here that seeing the Megalith stuff still functioning is actually kind of crazy. You gotta remember that this deck's whole purpose is to be able to beam out Chaos Max during the opponent's turn, and then basically make it so that they can't play the game through the activated effect of Mr. Chaos Max. Now, you're gonna notice this little thing here. We are playing Brilliant Fusion here, because Brilliant Fusion gives you the ability to make Zirconia here. But the most interesting thing about this is this dumps any of the Gem Knights and, well, basically lets you dump the materials from the deck. So what if you need to drop down your Block Dragon? Suddenly Brilliant Fusion turns into this pretty insane drop package to allow you to be able to see these turbo options so that you can go through these kind of dumb boards to kind of think about. I didn't actually realize that, like, a singular Brilliant Fusion in this deck, even though, you know, we don't have a way to search this, this card can turn into some very unfair boards at the end of the day. I also see we are playing Dark Ruler No More in here. Considering the current state of the format, you need ways to kind of blank turns. And I don't think that this deck really cares. I mean, obviously, like Baron, I think Baron is your go-to boss monster, honestly. This deck used to be able to Calamity Lock your opponent and be able to punish them. You don't really have that now. And Chang Ying is probably your other second largest attacker that you're pushing out of the extra deck here. But the fact that you have access to 2 Barons should be able to clean up a majority of the issues that you have. But this is... I think this is very interesting to actually see. Next up here. So we have basic heroes for you today. Now, there's nothing wrong with heroes being a basic constructed deck, all right? Like, you just got to understand that fundamentally what you're looking at is the deck is incredibly straightforward. You know, Mr. Stratos as a 2-up for this build, I kind of like. And remember, this build's playing 45 cards. Obviously, things like Max C being in here to kind of assist you through, you know, maximum value for the best lines of play. I also see we are siding shifters. I didn't think I would see a hero deck trying to play shifter, but the fact that you can have access to this card to actually bring down the pressure on your opponent, you know, cutting them off of probably some better options. We also see the thrust in here. Yep, you got to love the value that this card brings you with tack talents. Double poly is a little, is this weird? I don't know. I'm used to these builds only playing one poly, and they kind of just go, okay, well, mission accomplished, you know, at the end of the day. And, of course, the Infernal Rage. Still love this card. I believe this is probably why they're playing the second poly, to kind of make sure, you know, you get access to this a little bit easier. So, overall, interesting. Next up here, we have Lightsworn sporting off one copy of Shayren. Now, I will say, Shayren in this style of deck is literally send the top 3 cards of your deck. It's the only reason why you play this. And maybe if you RNG mill it, you can make a Mud Dragon. I think that that's what honestly kind of makes this worth it. Now, this build is also playing Starleash Stay Fort, call it what it is. You know, Stay Fort gives you the ability to toggle on into some higher dragons. You want to Levianeer? Hi, Mr. Judgment Dragon. Hello, Punishment Dragon. This build is not playing the big Fusion Dragon, though. We all love our big little Chunga Super Fusion, but most of these builds don't even make any sort of effort to really approach it anymore. I also see, of course, a Giant Trainer, because we have the Horus package in here as well. Actually, you have all of your Horus friends present. So basically, you should be able to kind of turbo through and set up into one of the larger monsters, at least to get the Giant Trainer going. Must be nice, OCG, to still have Curious legal. I actually wonder if the TCG will bring Curious back from the grave here to actually give this deck a chance. Next up here, oh boy, we have a 60-card variant with the Grass Look Screener. You want to talk about massively toxic Yu-Gi-Oh! Here. Imagine you high roll this, you hit all of these. Is it possible to high roll triple Necroface in a 60-card deck to get, you know, the absolute destructive Banish 15 from your opponent just to be able to punish them? Oh wait, you have triple Fairy Tail Snow? Oh, not a problem at all. That makes the high roll even more insane for a deck like this, because we can just, you know, start chucking, you know, these at our opponent. Now suddenly things are getting a lot crazier. Fairy Tail Snow is an insane card, even in a format like this. Also the fact that we have actual Vendread Revolution in here. I mean, hey, banish this from a graveyard, target 5 of your banished zombie monsters, shuffle them into the deck, and draw 1 card for each. This is a soft loop, because these are all zombies, the Mizuki and the Plague. If you actually see this, you can recycle your Necrofaces and punish your opponent. That's freaking hilarious that this card... Okay, I've seen enough. Next up here is... Why are... There's a Labyrinth monster in here, I see. We are playing one lovely Labyrinth in here. You have your Bone Archfiend stuff. You have the Red Lotus Flame Crime King. During your main phase, you control a Fiend Tuner or your opponent special summons a monster. Special summons a card from your hand, and if this card is special summons, you ping your opponent for 400 damage to your opponent for each fire monster you control with different names. And if it's sent to the graveyard synchro material, send a normal trap from your deck to the graveyard. Oh, we can drop down Fiendish Golem. We can drop down Red Rain. Oh, okay. So this gives us some little cute options along the way. I also see, yeah, another deck out here playing Kaiser Coliseum to set up the little, you cannot have more monsters than me, and then your opponent just stares at you and goes, yeah, this is real fun, man. This is the type of Yu-Gi-Oh! That I really enjoy out here. Well, more synchro options I feel like are always good. And our last list back here is more Valiance. I genuinely have been keeping up with a lot of the Valiance shenanigans out here because they still have Dagda. Like, this deck's toolboxing options is very unique. And the fact that you do see the Performa Powell Duelist Extraordinaire seeing play in here, this is a pretty good example of, you know, bridging these option trees together, and also how good the Supreme King stuff actually can be for aiding pendulums. Now remember, OCG still does have Electromite. I say this a lot, but honestly, Electromite on Into the Beyond and the Exceed the Pendulum, you have so many extra deck options, it's kind of crazy. And this is actually playing the Grand Sulfachord monster. Well, it is a generic Link 3, so I guess that's something kind of cool that you've got going for you. But this build has a lot of utility options. Honestly, I think a lot more than I kind of expected to see. So that's all that we have for OCG Thursday this week. Honestly, a lot of options available to you in the meta. if you're playing the OCG, especially. Maybe some a little bit funner than others, but everything else is just fire. You guys have a good rest of your day, all right? Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.